Welcome back to America's Commercial Real Estate Show. I'm Michael Bull. This segment is brought to you by Build Out. This is a great broker tool for marketing and websites. Visit buildout.com. Well, today we're exploring the $13.7 billion announcement by Amazon to buy the Whole Food stores. And they've got 431 locations around the country. What does it mean for retail property owners and retailers? Well, let's get an answer to some of that now. Please welcome my next guest, Jim Costello. Jim is Senior Vice President with Real Capital Analytics, and he's joining us on the phone. Jim, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, Jim, when you look at the kind of the history of these grocery-anchored centers that have Whole Foods in them, you know, they're in pretty good locations. What do you see regarding kind of current value, or what you've seen in the past, you know, before this announcement when you compare it to the market?
Yeah, let's break that down a couple ways. Let's talk first about grocery-anchored retail overall. In the last few years, when investors are hungry for yield and jumping into property types that felt safer, grocery-anchored retail was always one that stood out, because even though there's some negativity around the retail sector right now, given the growth of the internet and competition there's always the need for those basic necessities of food and toiletries. So grocery-anchored retail was doing great, and then within that, you know, there was a particular star for a bit, any grocery-anchored center that also had a Whole Foods. And to 2013, 2014, those centers, the transactions that happened were at cap rates that were almost 200 basis points lower than grocery centers on average. So there was a time when these centers were the cream of the crop, you know, the most expensive places that the investors were going.
And was some of that, Jim, because of the locations where these Whole Foods were going in? Maybe they're a little bit better locations than some of the other grocery stores when you compare them overall?
Yeah, if you take that premium and you break it down over time, there's a component of it that I think came from the locations where they were. And there's a component of it that came from the strength, really the balance sheet of the tenant that was there.
Yeah.
The Whole Foods was picking locations where you had, you know, high-income individuals, consumers on the go, who were willing to pay up for, you know, pay higher prices for organic foods and healthy prepared meals. So they had to find these locations where these people were. So that location premium, they paid for it first, but then also the tenancy. You know, for a while, Whole Food share prices were very high. They were the king of the organic world. It's the only place you can go to get a lot of that. Over time, that tenant premium seems to have declined. In the last few years, Whole Foods, their fortunes have slipped a bit, and part of that is you can go to any corner store now and buy some organic food. My old apartment building here in New York had a little grocery store that, you know, only had organic produce, so that's pretty much everywhere now. So that location premium is still in place, though. They're still in fantastic locations surrounded by high-income individuals, and that is something that you know, people were still paying a premium for. But the tenant premium had slipped in recent years.
Yeah, we're talking with Jim Costello, Real Capital Analytics, and they track investment property sales pretty much all over the world. And we're talking about retail today because this is a big announcement, I think, with Amazon buying Whole Foods. And Jim, what does this mean for the value of centers with Whole Foods in them now? If this sale goes through and you have the credit of Amazon and the business practice of Amazon coming in, and then what does that mean for grocery anchored centers that are non-Amazon that now are, or non-Whole Foods, however you want to look at it, that have to compete with them?
Well, it's tricky. There's a number of different moving pieces here to consider. If it was as simple as the location premium was what people are paying for, and now you have a tenant premium again, you might think that cap rates for these Whole Food anchored centers might start to compress again. Now, that said, it's hard in this environment where I think everybody expects a little bit of an interest rate increase, and that we're probably at the lowest levels people can get for cap rates. So I don't think you're going to see additional compression just based on this new tenancy. But who knows? You might. But I think at the very least, you'll see that tenant premium come back again. And so if interest rates start to go up and cap rates for retail start to go up, perhaps for these centers, you'd see less of an expansion as people pay up for that tenant premium. Just given the strength of the balance sheet of Amazon behind this venture, I think people would feel safer about these investments. Now, as for other grocers, that gets trickier. The day after the announcement on the stock market, all the other grocer retailers took a bit of a hit. But I think the public equity markets sometimes overreact initially. If you are still one of those grocers and you've got a good client base and a good location, does it really change your business model? Maybe eventually. We just don't know what the business approach of Amazon swallowing Whole Foods is going to be yet. If I own an asset and the tenant's cash flowing, they've got a number of consumers coming there every day for those day-to-day needs, that's not going to change immediately.
Yeah, that's interesting. And you mentioned the stock market reacting on Friday. Costco on Friday went down 7%, Target 5%, Walmart even 5%. So the market did react, and Amazon stock went up. So when you look at these retail centers and retail has kind of lost its favor a little bit in the investment world, might this be a spark? I mean, if you look at the last mile issue, that has become a big issue for a lot of these online retailers. Is this a signal that retail it's very well located typically, right? Great visibility, great locations in areas with a lot of population. Does that mean maybe retail, it comes back in favor because now you have another use?
Well, retail, I think, has never fallen out of favor for certain types of properties. The well-located, with the great demographics around them, I think investors have wanted to buy those for some time. The problem is that there's only a handful of those locations, and nobody wants to sell them. There's a lot of retail that's available at the fringes of a metro market. They have an empty Circuit City location. A developer built it in 2003, thinking that all the population growth was going to come their way, and never quite filled out. That's what is more transacting at the moment. The best of the best, if you're an owner of that stuff today, why do you sell? Where else are you going to put those proceeds? And I think that's it's a bit of an issue of haves and have-nots in retail right now.
Yeah, that's a good point. And it seems like a lot of the centers that we sell shopping centers in the Southeast, and we end up selling a lot of there between $2 and $3 million and $10 million. And even though there's some fluctuation in what's going on with those tenants, they seem to be very popular, even in the secondary, tertiary markets. And it was kind of interesting. Well, we'll see if this helps retail in general, or if some people look at it as another nail in the coffin. Well, Jim, thanks for tracking and doing what you guys do, and thanks for being on the show.
Thanks again for having me.
All right, thank you. And stay tuned. We're going to have more. I mean, if you look at 431 locations, and Amazon's probably going to be in your backyard and my backyard, what does it mean for us? What's it mean for retail? And what's it mean for real estate moving forward? Stay with us. We'll have more right after this short break. And please do join us on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, comment on the show, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love to hear from you. Stay with us. I'm Michael Bull. This is America's Commercial Real Estate Show.